All right, it's 12:30. You know, we have a lot of panelists and not a lot of time, so I'm going to get started. My name is Charlie Fink. I am a professor and a writer, and I am here with some very good friends back in the reel again. My podcast partner, Ken Shilowitz, from Paramount Global, Joanna Popper at Metaverse for CAA. We have Aaron Luber from the Google. Thomas Dexmier, he's the Australia-New Zealand country manager for HTC Vive, and then last but not least, Patrick Costello from Qualcomm. So here we are again. Last year was the year of the Metaverse here at CES and everywhere. And of course, it's in the title of the panel. So 1 year later, Joanna, where are we in the Metaverse?
We're still on our journey. We're still on our journey to the Metaverse. I think last year was a really exciting year for various aspects of the Metaverse. The way that we look at it at CAA is that the Metaverse is the future iteration, the next iteration of the internet, and there's various technological components of that. Many of them are still early stage, maybe a bit clunky, but have their deep enthusiasts. And so when we're at CEA, we are working to make the help make our clients and the company Metaverse ready. And so in some cases, that's about helping our core traditional clients make their way into the space. We worked with Anthony Hopkins to help him build out his NFTs. He did an NFT drop with Orange Comet, which sold out in 7 minutes. It actually took down OpenSea. We work with groups like Chainsmokers to help them create Roblox worlds. It's now the #1 Roblox world for music branded experiences, reaching 24 million people in just a month, which it would have taken them a year of arena tours to do that. And then we also work with the most relevant, most interesting content creators that are endemic to this space. So for us, we see that it's early. We have clients and talent that are ready to jump in and be first movers. We have others who are, say, Metaverse curious and wanting to learn, and then others who are happy to let others go first and learn from them.
Okay, same question from the perspective of Paramount Plus.
So it's really nice to be back. Nice to see people.
Yes.
Nice to be a little terrified of other humans. It's kind of good. It's kind of good. So I work for a big media company. Joanna and I, everybody here, we're all friends. I would say I'm very pro and very bullish on Web3, on blockchain underpinnings, on the evolution of 3D graphics as it relates to streaming to all devices wherever you are. So I'm very pro on that. I would say I'm fairly negative on the terminology of the Metaverse. I think it has outpaced the functionality, usability, desirability of the term, and I think our friend Neil Stevenson would agree, who came up with the term. I think, it's an interesting psychological touch point to look at a terminology, and when the terminology starts to replace the reality of what's going on, so that all these people sort of glom onto it, and there's all this profiteering and all this sort of challenges around it. For me, I kind of want to pull back from it. Like, I don't want to talk about the Metaverse. I want to talk about the things that relate to how technology propels forward constantly. And I think over-relying on the terminology is a mistake. And you and I have talked about this a lot on our podcast. So that's my take on it.
Not to overly pimp our podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Great podcast.
Thank you, Aaron. I'm so glad you're on this panel.
No, thank you for having me, and it is great to be back in person. Been a long time. I agree with a lot of kind of like where the definition of that word is right now. But I think from a Google perspective, it's, we're on this kind of, as we've always been, when we sit on these panels and we talk about a lot of the work that we're doing, we talk about multi-year journeys, we talk about kind of an evolution of a lot of the things that we're doing. And that theme always continues and will continue. We'll probably be here next year saying a lot of the same, but from a lot of the perspective that we have, Google is always going to continue to lean on our strengths in navigation, mapping, strengths in information, search, and Google Lens. And I think a lot of like the perception of a digital world, right? We have also a physical world, and we have an ability to kind of blend these two things together, have a physical and digital world come together. And we've already been doing a lot of that via a mobile device. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing in terms of the way people are using, younger generations are using Roblox, Fortnite, a lot of the social elements and kind of where this will go as 3D graphic rendering, all the things that are happening and continue to evolve. The building blocks are being put in place. And I think that, it's going to take time. It's going to take time to kind of build on that. For us, it's leaning on the things that we do today on mobile devices that we can do, be it AR Core, AR experiences in Google Maps and search. We just did a pretty sizable campaign with gorillas in Times Square and in Piccadilly Circus, launching their
If
brand new.
you haven't seen that, by the way, the YouTube videos are epic.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
really good.
It was cool, and thank you. And I think look, is that the metaverse? Who knows? But like, it's the blend of a digital representation on top of a physical world where people are coming together to experience together and see something, in their space. So it's a lot of ways you define it, a lot of ways that this is continuing to evolve, and I think it's about building blocks and putting those pieces in play that we all are doing in the industry.
So Vibeverse.
Yeah, well, speaking of building blocks, it's an interesting point because the metaverse is a journey, and we're only at the very beginning of it. It's very complex, and certainly more complex than what people can actually think. So we've actually taken an approach whereby we try to break it down into three main areas. The first one is content creation, and we've done a whole bunch of things over the past few months. A good example would be our Mars Camtrack that allows content creators to produce good quality content at a cost that's fairly affordable compared to the other tools that they've got access to right now. Content creation is one, but then you've got your content distribution. So what's the actual relationship between the content and network connectivity? And you know that at HTC Vive, we are HTC, so we've got a very strong legacy in mobility, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. So producing and giving these content creators a way to distribute their content over 5G with a product called the G-Range, which is it's a portable private 5G solution that not only enables the low latency and super high bandwidth of 5G, but takes a different spin to all the rendering and all the, as you said, it's the blend between the digital and the physical world, relies on CPUs and a whole lot of heavy lifting that is required at the endpoint, which is a VR headset or tablet or whatever you want it to be. So shifting that heavy lifting and processing power to the cloud through remote rendering and edge compute. And obviously the third point, which people usually associate the metaverse with, as far as we're concerned, and that's VR headset. It doesn't have to be a VR headset. We think that it has to be, for it to work and succeed, it has to work across platforms. So from a 2D screen for people that would be on the commute, all the way through to the most sophisticated VR and XR headsets. And you'll find out a bit more about what HTC Vive is cooking in that space in the next few hours. So it's a huge beast. Breaking it down into three main silos is the approach that we took. But obviously it wouldn't be possible without the work that we're doing with Qualcomm and what.
Funny, everybody says that.
Yeah, well, that's what they hear.
True.
It's funny because at some point last year, I don't remember exactly when, but it went from cool to using the word metaverse to then suddenly it was kind of like a jump the shark and suddenly uncool to use the word metaverse. So my point of view is that it's just a convenient word, umbrella word that we can use to all talk about the same things. We talked about the building blocks. So if we're talking about connectivity or 3D real-time rendering, or devices or the infrastructure or interoperability or open standards. This is all the inevitable sort of march to this next evolution of where we're going called the metaverse. So I will continue to unapologetically use the word metaverse, if that's okay. So for Qualcomm, being an enabler in the space, we're going to continue to invest in how we invest and how we enable the market. And that's really through our silicon solutions and our software solutions. So last November, we announced what we call the AR2 Gen 1 chipset. This is a bespoke piece of silicon specifically for AR glasses. It's running on a 4 nanometer process node. It's like 50% more power efficient than our previous generation chipset. The PCB size is 40% smaller and laid out horizontally to go in the glasses. So we're huge believers that these immersive glasses are going to be one of the main ways that you enter the metaverse. And then we're also pairing that with a new platform solution we call Snapdragon Spaces, which is a developer-facing tool, an SDK, that developers who are working in either Unreal or Unity can create content for this new form factor of devices. So you can expect this year and next year to see some really compelling, hopefully new designs from our partners coming to market using these technologies.
So I have a follow-up question for you, and I'll give it a bit of a preamble if I might. In October of 2021, Meta made this momentous announcement. They changed their name from Facebook to Meta, thereby appropriating the metaverse, which is part of the problem with that word, I think. And it's come to be used interchangeably, perhaps incorrectly, with Web3, because people, as a friend of mine at Microsoft said, don't like saying Meta all the time. And of course, Meta has had its own struggles, which has kind of dragged the metaverse down. And then on the intellectual side, you've got people like Tim Sweeney and Matthew Ball putting forward the argument that immersion is optional in the metaverse, and that plenty of people have very engaging experiences that you couldn't argue are not the metaverse using 2D screens. So they use a 2D screen to navigate a 3D world. So in Sweeney's view, immersion is nice to have sometimes. So I bring the question back to you, Patrick. How important is XR to the metaverse?
I mean, our view is it is extremely important to be a fundamental pillar. Of course, it's not the only way, I think, that you're gonna enjoy the metaverse. But we've stood up an entire division specifically focused on enabling this new category of devices. So we really believe that being fully immersed in these new experiences are going to be, especially when for example, if you're putting glasses on, right, and you're interacting with the world in a way that is going to be seamless between your digital and physical space. That's going to bring a whole different level of presence and experience for the user. So again, just one way to answer it, but extremely critical, we think.
I'll add something to that as it relates to what you guys did with the gorillas. So that was literally like right outside the front of our office at Times Square. So a lot of people that work for MTV and stuff went to it and they said, it was awesome, but, right? And the awesome but part is probably this journey that you and I and all of us have had for, let's call it 15-ish years now, sort of this yearning of getting more screen real estate, right? We're always looking at it, and this audience is a good example. There's people using it through this little sort of portal, this magic window that's 5-6 inches. And when you see something as amazing as giant gorillas on top of buildings in Times Square, it's kind of cool. You're holding it up, but you have this internal yearning for the what if, when I can get it on my face in the right use case, in the right dynamic, it will truly be magical. It won't be just sort of semi-magical. And that's kind of what I think CES is kind of all about, right? Is like, can we get there? When will we get there? How much will Qualcomm help us get there? By the way, the new chip is a full-on miracle. How small it is and what you can do with it from a form factor size, the next 3 to 5 years, I think, are going to show that maybe it is possible to be able to do these entertaining, informational experiences, social experiences, connected experiences that are truly mind-blowing. Not just like, yeah, it's mind-blowing-ish, but I'm still trapped, right? I want to untrap ourselves. And I think HTC comes into that, we all come into that. So I don't know if you agree, disagree, because you have a business in today's thing, right? But you also can extrapolate to the future and sort of dream that maybe someday we'll get past the phone.
The business is the talent, right? The talent will operate across various screens.
You got to do it where people have devices, right? And
Where
we all have new devices from the future, but not everybody.
Right. I mean, it's a combination of the reach of the devices of today and continuing to push the innovative storytelling into the devices of what may be today for us, but it becomes
We can all
the
hope,
future.
right? We can all hope and keep pushing pressure on it.
Yeah, it's a combination of that. We want to be able to scale to as many people as we can right now, and the phone allows us to have a lot of that experience exist in that form factor right now. But of course, there's a vision for what that will do for other form factors into the future, but it requires the right silicon. It requires 3D rendering in the cloud, stuff that Google Cloud is doing, GCP is doing. It's training behaviors that are going to go and allow that to kind of evolve over time. Again, building blocks. These are all building blocks of the things that will come as these products come to bear. That's what we keep saying. It's taking years for us to kind of do that, but it's an evolution as we move forward.
I think, Charlie got rid of his glasses, so he doesn't want to go back to glasses.
No, I did that so that I would not need inserts.
You need the
in my
extra layer,
glasses.
right?
And I can't tell you, by the way, how many glasses I ruined using the Quest 2 because the lenses rub against each other and to bad effect. And so that was a very expensive problem that I had.
We
I
have
eliminated.
we have solutions for that problem, Charlie.
Yes?
But the point you're making around presence. I live on this island on the other side of the world called Australia. And during COVID, I've used my VR headset more than anything else because that was the only medium that would actually keep me connected with my peers over here and over in Europe. I could do it on my phone, and I've done it a few times. So you feel like it doesn't really add much value compared to what I would get on a Teams or a Zoom call, for example. And for us, it's all about presence, immersion, but not something, we want that community to be inclusive. And that's why the approach of a good, better, best type thing where you've got access to your phone, it's not great, but it's good enough for you to be a part of it and not be left out, all the way through to the most immersive headsets. XR headsets is where we think the market is going. And that's how we're hoping to drive adoption.
So although CES 2023 has not yet happened, I think it's a fairly safe bet that we're going to be talking a lot about AI, right? If last year was the CES, it seems like every CES has its own buzzword, whether it's IoT or whether it's connected auto, but this year it probably will be AI. So I guess the question I have, and I think that has a lot to do with wearables, right? Because if wearables are going to really be useful to us, they have to kind of have context and know us a little bit and our preferences. But how do we think, and I'll bring this back to you, Patrick, because you guys are, packing the hardware into these things or the chips into these things. How is AI going to change or enhance what you're doing?
Yeah, maybe just more broadly. AI, we look at AI as one of those technologies that sort of applies to all the technologies we're working at Qualcomm across all of the business units and product categories. So, of course, it's been kind of starting in mobile, right? So now we've already shipped billions of AI-enabled mobile devices across the globe. Where we're coming at it from right now is really kind of the performance enhancement machine learning angle, right? So AI is making your camera experience better. It's making your video experience better. It's making your device more secure. It's making your gaming experience better. More applicable, I guess, to XR. One thing I'll share is that we just proved that. So if you have glasses on, there's a feature basically called 3D reconstruction or 3D estimation, right? So if you walk into a room, the cameras sort of need to reconstruct what it sees in that room so they can overlay digital assets in the correct way for the user, so you get that immersion and seamless experience. Well, we just showed actually that you can, normally you do that with binocular cameras. We just showed that you can do it with monocular cameras, so a single camera using 3D estimation with self-supervising machine learning happening on the host device and the glasses. So that's one example, but there's so many more examples in XR where AI and machine learning are going to be applicable for the user experience.
Yeah, the way we do it is, and you can tell we come from the same world. AI is not a product as such for us, it's a way to make our products and solutions better over time. Yeah, the more you use, the better it gets. And a good example for us would be the tracking on our VR headsets, right? So there's a lot of AI in pretty much everything we do these days across all business units, as you said. But hand tracking, for example, is a really good one, whereby the headsets and the software and all the runtime that powers the experience gets to know better based on 3D imaging and spatial computing, and that's how a product like the Vive Focus 3 has become one of the best VR headsets for enterprise market, for example, where the need for extreme precision whilst using a lightweight headset without the sophistication of base stations and is paramount. So
Look, I think we're having that AI moment that we're coming to CES right now, and everybody talking about it because there's been massive it's been a massive moment where public mainstream, ChatGPT, everything is like, Dolly, it's here. Oh, all of a sudden, all these people can see it and feel it and actually understand what it could do. Very, direct, specific use cases. But I think what you're hearing, and what I'll say is like, Google is built on as an AI company. We've been investing in, and it's a piece of so much of what our products entail today. And I think you're hearing that it's like AI might be having a moment in terms of the way people are talking mainstream, but these are core components of the way we operate. One thing to tie back to the metaverse stuff, I think it's very interesting. This is my opinion, just avoid Google or anything, but like I think that when you think about content creation in this metaverse thing, like that's going to require a lot of potential content. I'm excited about kind of some of the breakthrough you're seeing with Dolly, some of the stuff around imagery, generative media. Like to me, if you're going to build this entire world, if there's going to have to be all of this kind of 3D reconstruction, it has to rely on things like artificial intelligence, machine learning. I don't see how humans can build a lot of the vision of where we're going.
All the news stories and stuff we're reading about a 4-alarm AI fire at Google are not true? Just
Good question, Charlie.
I could, my job is to follow the news, so I couldn't not say that. Ted, you were.
Aaron is processing what
It's all right.
He's
I'm not
using his
going
own
to only softball question.
That's a good question. I'll let you off the hook unless you want to answer.
We're deeply invested in
AI company, got it.
So glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, AI
Yeah.
company, got it.
The only thing I was going to add to that is if you want a really interesting perspective on AI, listen to the podcast episode of Smartless with James Cameron, who talks about, remember Skynet? Remember kind of back in the day? It gives a very interesting perspective on AI. That's all I was saying.
So here's an interesting observation. You remember at AWE back at the beginning of June, you and I were on a panel with Alvin Graylin,
Yep.
who's the president of HTC China, and a very, very well-informed and insightful guy. So he and I had an argument, which I think I have ended up on the losing end of, because he said that he thought AI would be responsible for building or assisting in the building of most of the spaces in the metaverse. And of course I said, artists and humans will never be disintermediated. But am I wrong?
You're not 100% wrong. You have a
Let's go to the talent person.
Yeah, go to the
without
talent
that.
person.
Yeah, I wanted to answer both of the last two questions. So I see that AI will have at least 4 really important impacts in the space. So one, in the overall entertainment space, it's already been heavily used with things like personalization recommendations. So all of us enjoy that every day for what we watch and what gets served to us and what helps make things popular as well. So that's already happening. Two, building on and agreeing with Aaron's point and Alvin's point from AWE, the metaverse is vast and it absolutely will be built by world builders and game developers, and they'll be assisted by and collaborating with AI because of the vastness of it. So that's the second point. 3, in terms of production tools, AI is incredibly useful. We just made an announcement over the break, and there's a whole sort of breakdown on why we're excited about this technology and how we're seeing this space. So Connect Ventures, which is a partnership between CAA and NEA, just did an investment in Deep Voodoo, which is the South Park team, so Matt and Trey's synthetic media studio. And so with these tools, you're able to use face replacement technology that can be used in production shoots, which is using AI and machine learning as well as the benefit of some of the work that the VFX artists have done to make it better and better. And it is cheaper, it's more efficient, and it can be done even in real time. On the
Yeah, you're
fly.
talking about virtual production workflows and
No.
real-time rendering, or?
No, I'm talking about synthetic media, commonly called deep fakes. But synthetic media is a much nicer terminology for it.
Applying deepfakes, which have become this kind of dirty word of like, people just taking over people's personalities and authenticity, and actually rerouting that into a creative pursuit, which is a for-profit pursuit,
Yeah.
that they will use these tools, and Matt and Trey are totally doing it, right?
Yeah, so let me make a couple examples. And so you may have actually seen some of their work already. They did Sassy Justice, they did the Kendrick Lamar video where he becomes Nipsey and Will Smith and a number of other people. And so and the way it can be used in production is it can be used for age adjustment for a talent, so a talent can actually play themselves at 20, at 40, at 60, at 80, all in one film. A talent can be used for international dubbing, so a talent can then speak with their own voice in various different languages.
Yeah, we're using that now to replace thousands of hours. It's also interesting because you're also displacing part of the industry that actually makes their living doing those voices. Tom Cruise has a voice in Italy and a voice in Germany. And now we can use Tom Cruise's actual voice and use AI and with our help for our friends at Google, and we actually have Tom Cruise's voice in German. So that's kind of, there's an ethical pro and con to that, but for the most part, I think audiences want to hear Tom Cruise performing, not a voice simulator voice.
Exactly. So those are a couple examples. We have talent who've done entire commercials where essentially their digital double or synthetic media double did the commercial. The brands are really happy about it because it allows them access to this talent and maybe they're speaking German or Italian in it. So there's a lot of different things that can be done with it. For us, what's most important, and you just mentioned it a bit, is that we know that these changes are coming fast. We know this is happening, and that it's important that we work with companies and creators who are talent-friendly, ethics-led, and care a lot about the art form and the creation, and that we're working together with them to help the industry go in that way. We think that it's our fiduciary responsibility to both protect the talent as well as help them maximize the monetization opportunities. And so digital rights for the talent is a really important thing for us, and the rights for the creators who are creating the content. So that's another area that's incredibly important. And as I said, we just made announcements, our first of many announcements that we'll make in this area. And there's a whole breakdown and deadline today of why we think this area is important and where we think it's going.
So we're hurtling into the last 10 minutes of the panel. So I'm going to shift a little bit farther into the future. We live in an age of technological marvels. It seems in many ways, here we are at CES, that things are accelerating. At the same time, they seem to be moving very slowly. But we are starting to see things that were science fiction, like brain-computer interface and AR contact lenses. So is there a possibility that some of those technologies will leapfrog the technologies that we're talking about today, using XR and using headsets? I mean, in 2030, are we going to be talking about contact lenses and BCI and less about headsets?
Right. Well, we may be talking about implants, right? Which is the thing that kind of freaks everybody out is would you put a chip in your body? It is the art of science fiction right now, but it is reality, right? We use chips in lots of ways in the body, and that has become a pretty mainstream part of medicine, oddly enough. And we use computer vision to fix your eyesight and do all kinds of things. So the leapfrog effect is we're building all of this technology to surround our bodies. But when will we as a culture be comfortable enough with the idea that we could actually implant something that would then give us the visual treat without having to wear the outer accoutrement of a VR headset or an AR headset? And that is not science fiction. There are real companies working on that right now. So the question is, do you desire that as a human? We don't know.
Well, when we were at HP, we had done an investment in Mojo Vision, which is doing
that's the company I was talking about indirectly.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think the last CES that we were here, which is already
2020,
3 years
yeah.
ago, they came with their first demo, and since then,
Charlie and I have worn it. It's remarkable.
And
A
it's,
little terrifying, but remarkable.
it's gotten better every time I've used it. That's sort of why I bring it up, because you look at that and we're, the whole industry has been focused on this holy grail of, all day, every day, wearable, that, kind of integrates your life, what you're seeing, where you are. But, it's all kind of a movement of us becoming more like cyborgs. But, and of course, that's sort of the dark story, right? Are we going to be in control of it? Or are we going to be controlled by it? But do you think, Aaron, there's any way in 5 years we'll be talking about that?
I don't like to speculate. I think too much. We've
But
been
the
on
whole
these
panel is about speculating.
we've been on these panels for a long time, thinking about kind of where these things are going to go. I don't know. I mean, I'd love to check out those lenses. I've talked to those guys. A few
Yeah,
times,
I
and
think
I didn't think they were ready to go in people's eyes.
No,
Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely.
The difference between Aaron and I is I am actively trying to get fired every day, apparently, by my company, and he is doing his best to protect his perception of the company. That is the difference between us.
Your title Futurist protects you from a lot.
Yeah.
Although I must say
Has
that
to speak.
having done a podcast with Ted for almost 3 years, I would say he is very, very good at keeping secrets and keeping things close to the chest. And as his podcast partner, I have to say I'm not quite sure how I feel.
Yeah, I
about
know.
that.
But NDAs where you can lose your house are sort of a serious thing.
So just to bring it back to one final thought, which is sort of this quote unquote sort of Damocles that's been hanging over the entire industry for the last 5 years, which is what is Apple going to do? And I bring it up partly because the information, if you guys haven't seen it, came out with a very big story this morning on what exactly is going to be included in the Apple glasses. And it's a very authoritative story. I don't think this is your usual sort of Charlie Fink speculating on what might be in them. This is obviously somebody who has deep technical knowledge about the kind of chips and the way that they do it. So do you think it's going to happen in 2023? And what is its effect on the industry going to be?
I can take the last one.
Yeah, you stop, Aaron.
I mean, I hope so. I hope. I'm very excited. Just like I've always been very excited about what Meta's been doing, and very supportive of them. The work they've done has helped push along this entire industry. And we've been invested, Google, in AR, VR at different capacities over the years. Facebook has gone all in and helped push the VR industry in a very, very positive direction. COVID had a great impact on that. And I think Apple, when they come into market, will have also great impact on consumer adoption and more people trying. I'm excited to see what's going to happen.
We beat on Meta a lot on the podcast, and they do a lot of things that encourage that. But I would also say, were it not for its acquisition of Oculus and its overcommitment in many ways to XR, we would all not be sitting here having this
I don't
conversation.
leave out HTC as well.
Yeah,
also,
absolutely.
absolutely pioneered even more premium, sooner, faster. You've done phenomenal work. You've been very invested in that space. So I'm excited to see where this continues.
Well,
to push.
kudos to HTC for doubling down on VR. I have to say, a new standalone device from HTC is exciting and needed.
Very exciting indeed. But if whatever happens, the more the merrier. And if Apple does to the VR industry what it did to the smartphones market back in 2000 and what was that, 5, 6, 10 maybe, I can't remember. Happy days. Because as you know, it's driving awareness, it's driving adoption, it's driving the storytelling that goes around, product launches. They do it better than anyone else here on this planet. So yeah, I'm super excited as well. As long as it's not at the cost of, and knowing Apple, it won't be the case, but not at the cost of, user data privacy and all that jazz, which is becoming incrementally critical for us as an industry to control and make sure that, we all do the right things to protect the end user.
So Patrick, this has got to be a topic that you guys look at all the time because it's sort of a duopoly, I should say a prospective duopoly between an Apple operating system and one based on Snapdragon.
Yeah, and I should qualify all my statements to say that as a technology enabler, I have no firsthand knowledge of anything that Apple is doing, and Qualcomm is not enabling that device. If there is a device that might be coming up this year, not. But just to take the Qualcomm hat off, I mean, I think, we're rooting for them. We really want this device to be successful. We really want, Apple to be a success in the market. It's hard to imagine Apple releasing a product that won't be successful, but it's going to be healthy for the ecosystem. We want a good, healthy, open ecosystem. Of course, Apple takes a vertical approach, and we have a different philosophy. I mean, we have a horizontal approach, and we believe that there should be many, many players competing in a healthy ecosystem in this metaverse, where we're going in the metaverse. But we do wish them well.
It's a hard industry, right? So the more players that are in there investing their billions of dollars, having with the very, very smart engineers and product people and marketing people working to bring it forward, it can only help the overall industry, and in the end can help the consumer to have amazing experiences, the kind that that we've all had and that we all dream that the rest of the world that get to touch the rest of the world.
So here's my perspective on this. As Charlie knows, and some of you here know, certainly all I'm a fairly intimate relationship with Apple. So let's leave that aside. Nothing I'm going to tell you is what I know or don't know or have any idea what may or may not be happening. But what I will give you a perspective of, which I think is valuable, is Apple knows how to wait better than any company on planet Earth. They understand watching what humans will do with technology better than any company, period, on planet Earth. They will put the cycles into the background. They will watch everybody else in the foreground stumble around in the dark, make all kinds of mistakes, burn all kinds of capital, burn all kinds of resources, watch, learn, and squirrel away, sometimes for many, 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 many years, until they decide we have something that we think is now compelling at a level that an Apple customer will enjoy, find enchantment in, and actually use. And they will benefit from everyone else doing this dance now for the last 15 or so years in massive ways. So everything you read about in the information, all speculation about hardware, which is actually very non-important in this story. The hardware is very capable of doing these things. What they discover, and you can go backwards to learn about what Apple devices do, is that the human connection to the technology, Apple can find ways to do better than anybody can do, and will wait until it's ready.
It's funny that you bring that up,
perception.
because in the information story, they said, and actually this confirms something that I've been saying for a while, that they're putting avatar talk first. So they're going to do hyper-realistic avatar talk, they're going to do face tracking, and that's the new messaging, right? So they see that kind of connecting people together as the killer app for that device, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because think about, in this audience alone, we all talk about using VR chat. You use it because you have an impetus to use it, and living inside a VR headset to do socialization. But in practicality, very few people do it. They'll try it once, it's too clunky, you can't get it working right. You and I have done it enough to be like, we'll just dance it for a while, right? And that's kind of the human equation right now, is it's not seamless enough to lock in yet. What Apple will do is wait and put many, many cycles until they find the right lock-in point, and then go ahead and put it out into the world, which I think is interesting. I think that's probably a correct assessment.
Well, that's all the time we have. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you all for listening, and have a great CES. Thank you.